Hello, Starshine. My name is Liz and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe. And maybe check out my Facebook page where this whole thing began as well. Just be aware that I may be way further ahead there than I am here on my channel. So only look it up if you're alright with spoilers. All relevant links are in the description below. And of course, if you're a Sims player and you'd like to download any of the characters featured in my stories, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. Alrighty then, so welcome. And what is up, Buttercup? Are you having a good day or a bad day? Whichever your answer, please allow me to distract you from your life and tell you a story, a Simsational story. Before I begin though, I'd like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is just Sims, hey. I'm not going to apologise for treating them terribly, if that's what I've done. But I do want to assure you now that although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now we've gotten that over with, let's go. Today's story is from Kalthis & Co, and we're at chapter 4. If you have not seen previous chapters and would like to catch up, there are playlists available on my channel so you can hear the entire story in chronological order. The rest of us are going to move on from where we left off last time though. So without further ado. Kellyanne wondered if you could get used to telling men that you were pregnant. She'd never had to question the father's identity before, but everything else about this conversation felt awfully familiar. Nicolas was not pleased. He already had 4 children. He didn't need another one on the way. Nick spent a lot of time that night awake and thinking. He had known Kellyanne since before she even met Julian, and while he knew he didn't love her, could he really leave her? He hadn't had any contact with his children from Katrina, Nina, and Dina Caliente, although he knows their names. Katrina has Carlos, Dina has Justice, and Nina has twins, Lorelai and Christina. That is about all the information he has. Could he really bring himself to abandon yet another child? Nick's 4 children are all around Kelsey's age. He'd never really thought about it before because, what was that old saying? Out of sight, out of mind. The Caliente women had all cut him off when they discovered his duplicitous ways. And so, until now, he'd never experienced the pregnancy stage, let alone children. To think he had 4 little people out there, just like Kelsey. And so, Nick decided to stay. Kellyanne couldn't quite believe it. Of all the men who she would have expected to turn tail and run, it was Nicolas. Yet here he was, helping her take care of the household chores while they muddled through this mess together. It wasn't always easy though. Sometimes Kellyanne didn't think Nick realised how serious this all was. Sure, he had kids, but he didn't have anything to do with them. He never had. So he'd never actually done this before, had he? And Nick found Kellyanne to be a nagging worrywart. He was here, wasn't he? What more did she want out of him? Doing the right thing by his child was hard. The more time he spent around Kelsey, Kevin, and Kellyanne, the more Nick realised he didn't really want the life he'd just locked himself into. It wouldn't have been so bad if Kellyanne was even a halfway decent mother. She was still drinking. Nick conveniently forgot that he himself had drank with her when she was pregnant with Kevin. And the house was filthy. And half the time, Kellyanne didn't even look after the kids herself. She was always having little Allie Clements come over and babysit so she could do her own thing, whatever that meant, in her room. But at least with Kellyanne locked up in her room, Nick could do his own thing with Allie. He felt bad at first, but Allie was cute, and Kellyanne was a total drag. And if she hadn't been such a lazy mum, he wouldn't have been checking out the babysitter that they didn't need in the first place. It was her own fault he was cheating on her. For Kellyanne was in the middle of a deep depression. She was pregnant for the 3rd time in just over 5 years. Each baby to a different father, and she knew Nick didn't love her. She spent most of her days either sleeping, crying, or eating. Walking in on Nick and Allie one day almost wasn't a shock for Kellyanne. She'd known something was different about Nick, and she felt like she'd almost been waiting for this. But Nick hadn't been prepared for this. He was sorry, he told her. He hadn't meant it. Things had just been so weird and distant between them. She was always locking herself away. Could she possibly forgive him? Nick wasn't sure what he was doing. He didn't really want to be with her, but he couldn't quite bring himself to admit that to her face. And so, against her better judgment, Kellyanne decided to give him one last chance to get it together and be a father to their child. But Kellyanne wasn't the only girl Nick was making it up to. Allie was so sweet and innocent, and so passionately in love for the first time in her young life. It was easy for Nick to tell her how trapped he felt, and for her to believe that once the baby came, he would finally leave Kellyanne. But then, when baby Keith arrived, Nicolas found himself feeling more trapped than ever before. Kelsey was going to be in school soon, and Kevin was barely a year old, and he was the only father they'd ever known. Could he really leave them all behind? And that brings us to the end of Chapter 4 of Kellyanne, Kalthis and Co. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. Or like I said, look us up on Facebook for spoilers. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Bye!